All right, welcome back. So what I have today in the lab is the GkGk G06 tripod pan head. Got it off Amazon. If you're not familiar with this device, it basically is a mount for a tripod that provides a sort of a hydraulic dampening. So when you want to do panning and tilting, it allows you to have that very smooth footage for the most part. So it's almost like it's slowing you down, but it's giving you a little bit more stability, and it's making your movements more fluid. So what I'm going to do today is actually kind of talk about the product first, and then I'm going to do a demonstration. I'm actually going to throw it on a tripod so you can kind of see how it actually mounts up, and then I'll take it outside and then just do some panning and tilting just so you can kind of see what the effect actually is. As far as what I paid for it, got it off of Amazon Prime. I was looking for a bunch of different pan heads. Frankly, I almost just went with Manfrotto, and then the Manfrotto pan head that I actually found was, gosh, probably about 140 bucks. So I ended up going to YouTube, watched some reviews, and this one, as well as the newer, were the ones that were actually recommended as far as getting one that was fairly affordable. So I picked this one up, and this was actually the Amazon choice versus the newer, for $33.99 on Prime. Of course, came in a couple of days, came in a fairly standard box. The only thing that actually came inside of the box was some bubble wrap and some very vague directions, which actually they weren't even directions. It was a card for the seller that pretty much said, if you have problems with this thing, contact them versus going through Amazon. So not very much help. The other thing that actually came in here that I realized that I was going to use as soon as I unwrapped it and tried to put it on my tripod was a screw to adapt the actual bottom piece, the actual bottom screw thread, to the standard 1/4 of an inch from the 3/8, which is what this actually is. So thankfully it actually came with two, so I could actually mount it on both of my tripods if I want. So right now I actually have my quick release plate. So this right here did not come with this device. This is actually part of my tripod. But just looking at the device, for the most part, build quality appears to be okay. I've played around with it a little bit. Everything appears to be fairly fluid. There's a couple of times where I believe when you're panning or tilting, it kind of is a little sticky, and I'm thinking it's because of whatever the lubrication, the grease or fluid they're using inside of this device, because it's been static for so long in a box. It's going to take time with me going through, possibly doing movements so to kind of like cover the parts that are contacting, and maybe it'll work itself out. If it doesn't, I can definitely update this video, and granted, I'm going to go and update the Amazon review just to let people know that that is a problem. But for the most part, it wasn't that big of a deal because it's almost at the end of the range, but I'll go over that later when I get to it. So comes with a couple of different levelers. You have this one, and then you also have this one on the very top. This right here I thought was really neat. So if I'm looking down like I am at the camera, just being able to kind of see if the orientation or if it's actually level from this perspective, I think it's going to be very helpful. My other tripods actually do not have this, so most of the levelers are here on the side in some shape or fashion. But it's a pretty straightforward operation. If you actually want to tilt, all you need to do is either loosen this device, and then you can tilt, and then you tighten it to lock it into place. So that would be clockwise to tighten it. And then this device here is what you're actually going to use for your panning. And you'll notice on the very bottom here, there are some digits, and it actually kind of tells you which way you're actually pointing. The one thing that I did notice is if you tighten this too much and you're trying to force it and it's not turning, what it'll end up doing is it'll actually start to loosen the screw that's actually connected to your tripod. So for the most part, just make sure you have this released, and then that way you can actually tan. Because even if you release it like all the way, it's still not going to be like too fast, so you're still going to get that fluid motion whenever you go to use this particular feature. But yeah, like I said, it was just one of those things that I knew I needed to pick up. I decided to go with this cheaper model, and I'm going to test it out to make sure that it actually does what it is I want it to do. Today I'm also wanted to mention that I'm filming this review in Cinelike. I believe I'm sitting in Cinelike D or V, I forget. I'm starting to play around with just different settings in this camera just because I'm starting to grade more and I want to get a flatter color profile. So therefore, leave some comments on what you think about the colors of this video, because I'm just adjusting as I go, just trying to make the videos better. So the other reason why I picked this one up over the newer was it actually held more weight. And because I'm more of a videographer versus a photographer, I have the tendency to place a lot of items on my camera, whether it's lighting or it's mics, you name it, handles, etc., cages. And this device will actually hold up to 12 kilograms or 26 pounds. So once again, when I start stacking things on my camera, I just want to see if this is going to be able to handle it. Not just to hold it, but to be able to still do the smooth panning and tilting versus it struggling and now my footage is all shaky. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to my tripod and mount this bad boy. All right, so now we have it mounted on a tripod. Before I go too far into detail, the tripod that I have it mounted on is the Amazon Basics tripod I just picked up for about 20 bucks. Haven't had a chance to review it yet. I'm actually still using it, or trying to get time to use it, since I usually use my Manfrotto. But I picked it up as a second tripod, that way I can have a second perspective. And this one is actually fairly light since it's all aluminum, so easy to travel with. Plus, it's actually a little bit taller than my Manfrotto. So once again, when I get a chance to use it, I'll probably put up a review. But continuing on, so I've got my pan tilt or my pan head mounted up. As you can see, I actually have it oriented so the tripod tilt handle actually is mounted in the opposite direction, so it's not in the way. And these are the components and the screws that we're going to be focusing on. The tripod's attachments, I've already locked them down so then the tripod doesn't move, and I've already loosened up the pan head's screws, so then that way we can get some smooth tilting and panning. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start out with the panning. So you'll notice panning, and I'll hold the tripod here because this thing is extremely lightweight, but it's fairly smooth. Once again, this is kind of the whole point of buying a device like this, so you can get that smooth footage whenever you are doing your panning, and then also of course your tilting. So I'll loosen this a little bit and now we'll get into the tilting. So the one thing that I will tell you is when I'm doing the tilt feature, and I'm going to go ahead and move this around here so you can see what I'm talking about. On the side there's a dowel, and it's got little notches here, and about right here is 45 degrees. So I noticed that whenever I'm going to do my tilt and I'm getting about to 45 degrees, like I mentioned, there's a slight hesitation. It's almost like there's a jump. I don't know if it's going to work itself out once things get lubricated and stuff, but we shall see. I personally don't believe that it's so drastic that in the event that I'm shooting and I get that same little whatever that is, it will look that much different. I think my footage would still be fairly smooth. Plus, I know if I know it's gonna happen, I can kind of adjust for it. And then also, worst case scenario, I could always edit it in post. So I'm not that concerned with it. But for the most part, this thing is pretty smooth. I'm willing to see how durable it actually is once I'm actually using it more often. And that's really about it. The other thing that I really didn't talk about on this device that it does have a capability to do is you can actually flip it, which I'll show you. It's kind of like a roll for the most part. So that's what I'm referring to. So let's say you wanted to actually go from a landscape to a portrait, or vice versa, depending on how you were shooting to begin with. You do have the capability to do that, and then you can actually lock it down. So in the event that I wanted to go up to about right there and shoot, and then let's say I still wanted to do some panning or some tilting, I can do it from that because this screw keeps it stationary, or a little less extreme angle. So let's say we go to about 45 degrees, same thing, lock it down again, and then there you go. So what I'll do now is I'm going to take this, throw this camera on, and get some footage. Okay, the first thing we're going to test is going to be the tilting. So the first time, I guess I'll try to tilt up. All right, fairly smooth. Okay, and due to this tripod, this is about as far as I'm going to be able to get up without panning just a little. All right, so now we're going to tilt back down. Okay, and I should be able to go past 270 just a tad. And there was that hesitation I was referring to earlier. I don't know if you saw it on the film. I might make a little annotation or something whenever I do editing. And we're about right here, and then back up. So who knows, maybe I can catch it this time. And okay, didn't see it. All right, so then we're going to go back to being level. All right, and I'm going to lock down the tilting. So now we're going to do some panning. Okay, so now we're going to pan. Everything's locked down. It's moving fairly smoothly. So I'm just going a little bit quicker. Okay, and back in the other direction. All right, 360 degrees. So all in all, it appears to work fine. I think that's going to do it for this test. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments section. Click like, and I think that does it. Signing out.